Late at night, in a quiet Gangnam villa, a man stands inside a private walk-in freezer. He is not shivering. He is not afraid. He is arranging bodies against the wall. Not one, not two, rows of them, frozen, silent, stacked with the same neat precision a librarian might use to shelve books. The newest arrival is still warm. The man carries it across his shoulder without effort, sets it down at the end of the row, and adjusts the angle of the head. Perfect. Everything about this room is perfect. The floor gleams. The air is bitter cold. Not a single droplet of blood remains where it should not be. On his phone, a news anchor is speaking softly. Police are tracking Mr. No's whereabouts while also investigating the company funds he embezzled. During the investigation, officers discovered a dozen women bound in chains in Mr. No's basement. All had their tongues cut out. All had been missing for years. The nation is in shock. The man listens without expression. Because Mr. No, the missing CEO of Dado Mulsan, is not missing at all. Mr. No is in this freezer. He is the newest addition to a collection, 332 bodies deep. His name is Dongbong Soo. To the outside world, he is unremarkable. Ordinary face, ordinary clothes. A quiet man in a spotless apartment where every surface has been sterilized and every object has its place. The kind of neighbor whose name you forget the moment you learn it. The kind of face that vanishes into a crowd of 10,000. In reality, he is Korea's most prolific serial killer. But Dongbong Soo does not hunt the innocent. He does not stalk children in playgrounds or women in parking lots. He hunts predators, carnivores, the men who chain young girls in basements and cut out their tongues, the executives who launder millions while smiling for cameras. The apex hunters at the top of the human food chain. He devours them, and he calls it a hobby. Tonight, as the news anchor moves from one story to the next, something catches his attention. A murder wave has broken out across the country, and academics are pointing at a new virtual reality game called Murim Online. The game, they claim, is so immersive that it is fueling murderous urges in impressionable minds. It must be banned. Dongbong Soo listens, very carefully. His footsteps, which had been climbing the stairs, come to a complete stop. Because for the first time in years, the news is not telling him about a new prey. It is telling him about a new hunting ground. He returns to his room. He opens his laptop. He orders one item without hesitation. A Murim Online capsule. A brand new world. A brand new playground. A brand new stage for his hobby. But there is one thing Dongbong Soo does not know. One detail that no soul in this universe has been informed of. On the other side of reality, in a place humans have imagined but never seen, a bored death god is about to make a clerical error so catastrophic that it will echo across dimensions. That mistake is going to graft the soul of Korea's worst serial killer onto the body of a beaten servant boy in a world where warriors split mountains, where blades cut through steel, where death is not measured in hours but in blinks of an eye, a world called Murim. And Murim, in all its centuries of blood-soaked history, has never encountered anything like the monster that is about to enter it. This is the story of Murim Psychopath. Dongbong Soo returns to his room and settles into the silence he has cultivated over decades. The apartment breathes with him. Nothing here is decorative. Nothing here is extra. A desk, a bookshelf, a small trash can, a bed made with hospital precision. Every object serves a function. Every angle is measured. Even the dust has been evicted. To an outsider, this room might suggest obsessive-compulsive cleanliness. To Dongbong Soo, it is something colder. Cleanliness is not a compulsion. Cleanliness is a shield. A clean room leaves no evidence. A clean life leaves no trail. And a man who leaves no trail can hunt for a very, very long time. He has thought about the moral weight of what he does. Once. As a teenager, he examined the question the way a chemist examines a compound, and he set it down again with the same neutrality. He does not enjoy hurting the weak. He does not enjoy pain for its own sake. What he enjoys, what he needs, is the moment when a predator realizes it has become prey. The moment when the man who has hunted others discovers that someone has been hunting him. That moment is the one thing in this world that makes Dongbong Soo feel alive. He has never questioned why. Some men are born with a hunger for music. Some are born with a hunger for numbers. He was born with this, and so he built his life around feeding it, and he built his methods around never being caught. 332 bodies, every one of them, in his private calculus, deserved what happened to them. He does not require the world to agree. The world does not need to know. The capsule arrives the next morning. It is delivered in an unmarked crate, exactly as the manufacturer promised. He unpacks it alone, installs it in the corner of his room, and reads the setup guide with the same focus a surgeon might bring to a scalpel. Every wire is routed. Every seal is checked. He powers it on, watches the diagnostic lights cycle through green, and steps inside. The lid closes over him with a soft hiss. Above his eyes, a translucent hologram appears in the dark. Welcome to Murim Online, the world of true powerhouses. Dong Bong-soo smiles. The character creation screen greets him. He chooses the least memorable face possible. He selects the weakest starting class. He gives himself a name he will not use, because names create records, and records create risk. Then he presses enter. The world materializes around him. A dusty road, a distant village, bandits crouched in the underbrush, players wandering between quest markers, laughing, shouting, calling each other by nicknames. The sky is painted a shade of blue no real sky has ever managed. He raises his hand. A spear appears in it, procedurally generated from the class defaults. He walks toward the first group of enemies, which the game has labeled Street Thug Elite. He swings. The spear passes through the enemy's neck. A gout of red light sprays out. A number appears above the enemy's head. The body falls, dissolves, and respawns 30 seconds later in exactly the same spot, with exactly the same posture. Dong Bong-soo looks at his weapon. He looks at his hand. He looks at the puddle of red light on the ground, which is already fading like breath on a mirror. There is no weight to it. There is no warmth. The blood does not smell. His muscles do not remember the strike. When the enemy died, there was no widening of the eyes, no gasp of recognition, no last defiant twitch of the jaw. Just numbers, just light, just the sanitized ballet of a system that has removed everything he came here to find. He kills a second thug, a third, a 10th, a 20th. Nothing changes. He watches other players around him. They are laughing, they are cheering, they are dying and respawning and hugging their guildmates and shouting into voice chat. They think this is real. They think the cold copy of violence in this world is somehow interchangeable with the thing itself. They are wrong. This is not a hunting ground. This is a playground for children who have never seen a real animal die. Dong Bong-soo lowers his spear. He looks up at the impossibly blue sky. He speaks 2 words, low and precise. Log out. His character stiffens. The world begins to dissolve at the edges. His vision fades toward the interface prompt that will return him to his body. And in that exact moment, in a place his consciousness cannot perceive, a death god is committing a crime that has not been committed in hundreds of millions of years. Death gods do not experience time the way mortals do. For them, an hour is not an hour. A century is not a century. Their duties stretch across dimensions the human mind cannot even shape into thought, and their memories accumulate like sediment at the bottom of a well no one has ever measured. Most death gods find purpose in the work, the severing of soul threads, the escorting of the dead, the cataloging of eternities. It is not glamorous, but it is necessary. Without them, souls would pile up, dimensions would clog, and the universe itself would grind to a halt. Belteruk is not most death gods. Belteruk is bored. He has been bored for a very long time. He sits at his obsidian desk in a corner of the underworld, spinning his scythe idly between 2 fingers, staring at the ceiling of the gray fog that has been his workplace for tens of millions of years. Around him, souls drift past like snow. Beneath him, the registry hums with the names of the newly dead. Above him, the senior death gods debate policies that will not change for another 10,000 years. Belteruk has performed his duties without a single mistake for longer than most mortal civilizations have existed. He is proud of this. He is also profoundly tired of it. He opens the registry with a yawn. Today's first customer. Soul number 3,789,028,376. Yesterday's collection came from the 110th dimensional realm. By the ancient rotation rule taught to every young death god, today's should come from the 111th. Belteruk taps the number, activates his terminal, and the gray fog of the underworld dissolves around him. The humid air of Earth swirls into place. He is standing above Seoul, above Gangnam, above a neat little villa where the greed and desire of the district rise from every window like smoke. Belteruk yawns again and jabs the tip of his scythe into the corner of his own eye. The cold of the blade travels up his optic nerve and burns away the drowsiness. It is a habit, a bad one. It is also the only thing that keeps him alert during these tedious collections. He drifts through the walls of the villa. He ascends floor by floor. He does not need directions. The registry has already fed him the exact vibration of the soul he is here to sever, and every step brings him closer to a small, spotless room on the top floor. He passes through the door. Inside, a black capsule dominates the corner. It is one of those virtual reality devices humans have recently invented. Belteruk has seen them before. They irritate him. When a mortal dies while logged into one of these things, their soul continues to strut around inside the fake world for hours, oblivious to the fact that its body has stopped breathing. It creates paperwork. He shrugs. He phases through the capsule wall. Inside, a man lies motionless. Ordinary face, ordinary build, a perfectly forgettable specimen of humanity, wearing the neural interface helmet that connects him to the game. Belteruk does not hesitate. He raises his scythe and severs the soul thread with a single, practiced stroke. The cut is clean. The body dies instantly. There is no drama, because a death god's scythe does not cut flesh. It cuts something older than flesh, something the physical world does not have vocabulary for. He steps back, expecting the soul to emerge from the neural port and drift up for collection. It does not, because the soul is still inside the game. Belteruk sighs. He knew this would happen. He always knew, and now he has to wait. To pass the time, he does what he has always done in these moments. He drifts around the mortal's room, examining the belongings, building a mental sketch of the person whose thread he has just cut. It is a meaningless habit. It has no bearing on his work. But it fills the seconds. The room is clean, unnaturally clean, the kind of clean that suggests either obsession or discipline. Belteruk narrows his eyes. Then his nose flares. A scent has reached him. Very faint, almost invisible. Something familiar, something old, something death gods know better than any other beings in the universe. The smell of blood, the smell of rotting corpses. His clairvoyant vision extends through the floor, through the ceiling of the apartment below, through the second floor, the first floor, down into the earth beneath the villa's foundation. Nothing, nothing, nothing. He pushes deeper. He passes 3 hidden chambers, each one shielded by careful engineering, each one empty. And beneath the third, he finds it. A vast industrial freezer buried far below the level where any modern building code would think to look. And inside the freezer, arranged with obsessive care, are bodies. Not 1, not 10, hundreds. Belteruk stops moving. His clairvoyant eyes bleed to white as he focuses, and he studies the corpses one by one. A death god can read the soul color of a killer from the residue left on the murdered. Every knife has a signature. Every strangulation carries a fingerprint. And what he sees now is something he has not encountered in a very long time. The killer left no rage, no hatred, no frustration, no vengeance. Only purity, a pure, focused, joyful murderousness, like a child playing with a favorite toy, like a musician performing a beloved song. Belteruk lets out a low chuckle. KKK. He has met many killers over the millennia. Angry ones, broken ones, traumatized ones, ideological ones. Most of them are noise. Most of them murder because they cannot find another way to feel something. This one is different. This one is not compensating for anything. This one simply loves what he does. A pure murderer thirsting for blood, Belteruk murmurs. In Earth terms, they would call this a psychopath. He rolls the word around his mouth. He finds it inadequate. Modern humans throw the label at anyone who behaves rudely at a dinner party. What is downstairs is not a personality quirk. It is a religion. Belteruk chuckles again. He has enjoyed himself. He turns back to his terminal, ready to complete his collection and move on to the next dimension. That is when the warning chime rings. Beep beep. It is the alert that the soul is about to log out. Time to be ready. Time to close the ledger and move on. Belteruk pulls out the registry again, purely out of habit. He checks the soul number one final time. He always double checks. He is a professional. He has never made a mistake. 3,789,028,376. The number matches. He smiles, satisfied. Then his eyes travel one line lower, to the dimensional realm marker, and every muscle in his ancient immortal body goes cold. The number written there is not 111, it is 112. Belteruk stares at the entry. He blinks again. He raises the registry closer to his face, as if physical distance is the reason his eyes are seeing what they are seeing. The number does not change. The soul he was supposed to collect today does not belong to the 111th dimensional realm. It belongs to the 112th. He was supposed to travel one dimension further before making the cut. Instead, he cut a soul from a realm that was not on today's schedule. He has just killed a man he was not supposed to kill. Or more precisely, he has just killed the wrong soul in the wrong universe. For any death god, this is not a small error. It is not a matter of paperwork. It is not something the senior death gods will scold him for and then forgive. In the underworld, mistakes of this magnitude have exactly one consequence: extinguishment, complete erasure. Not death, because death gods do not die. Something worse. The unmaking of everything he has ever been. Belteruk's mind races. Tens of millions of years of flawless service, and now, in the span of a single distracted afternoon, he has undone all of it. If Death God Yama learns of this, there will be no defense, no plea, no negotiation. There will only be the void. He curses, silently, then loudly, then silently again. And then, somewhere in the desperate acceleration of his panic, he remembers a story that death gods share only when they are drunk, or when they are very bored, or when they want to shock a new recruit. The story of the mad death god. Hundreds of millions of years ago, there was a death god who tried something forbidden. He attempted to fuse two souls into a single body. He wanted to see whether it could be done. He wanted to know whether the universe itself would tolerate such a thing. He called it soul grafting. The method, in theory, is simple. When a soul is severed from a body but has not yet been collected, its thread hangs free. If another soul is guided into the same body while the thread is still fresh, and if the second soul is anchored quickly enough, the graft holds. The mad death god was, of course, discovered. Yama extinguished him. The details of what happened to the souls involved, whether the experiment succeeded or failed, whether new beings were born or old ones destroyed, are all classified. Yama placed a gag order on every witness. But among the death gods, in quiet corners of the underworld, a consensus has always existed. The graft, they whisper, is possible. Belteruk stares at the capsule in front of him, at the soul thread still dangling from the neural port, waiting for its owner to log out and be collected. He looks at his terminal. The soul from dimensional realm 1112 is going to die within moments. That soul was supposed to be his real collection today. If he lets both souls proceed as scheduled, the registry will show one death from realm 111 that should not have happened, and one death from realm 112 that did not get processed. Yama will notice. Yama will investigate. Yama will find him. Unless he takes the soul he has just wrongly severed, guides it into the body of the man who is about to die in realm 1112, and then completes the original registry entry as if nothing has happened. The total number of souls in the ledger remains unchanged. The dimensional counts balance. No one will know. The soul from realm 111 will simply live a second, unauthorized life in a body that was never his. Belteruk grabs the soul thread. He does not hesitate. He does not deliberate. He does not weigh the ethical dimensions of what he is about to do. Ethics is a luxury for beings who are not about to be erased from existence. He activates his terminal. The dimensional coordinates for realm 1112 populate the display. A soft chime, a whisper of pressure. And Belteruk vanishes from the villa in Seoul, carrying with him the soul of the world's most refined murderer, bound for a body that was, only moments ago, being kicked to death in an alley on the other side of the universe. Soul grafting has just occurred for the first time in hundreds of millions of years. The underworld does not notice. To understand what Beltaruk has just done, one must first understand the body he has just filled. His name is Sosam, or rather, that was the name his family gave him, in a mountain hut in the middle of nowhere, on the third birthday of a child no one expected to survive the winter. Sosam, a small, gentle sound. The name of a boy meant to grow up in a small, gentle life. That life ended when he was 5. A typhoon came down from the northern sea and buried his village under mud and broken wood. When the rescuers arrived days later, they found one child breathing. Just one. His mother, his father, his 2 older brothers, his grandmother, his infant sister, all of them were part of the earth now. Sosam was extracted from the wreckage. He was passed from village to village. No one wanted a child who had no household registration and no relatives to negotiate with. He learned to sleep in ditches. He learned to eat what stray dogs left behind. He learned to make himself so small and so quiet that adults would not notice him and drive him off. At some point, hunger led him to the gate of a large estate in the town of Bongyang. The estate belonged to the Danri family, one of the mid-tier martial sects of Anhui province. He knocked. He begged. Someone opened the gate. That was how he became a servant. For over 10 years he tended horses. The word servant, in this world, is a polite fiction. In the martial sects, servants are closer to slaves. Contracts exist, but they are written and enforced by the very families that use them. The government has agreed since the founding of the martial world's uneasy peace with the throne not to interfere in the internal affairs of martial sects. And so the servants of a sect exist in a legal void, where their employers are also their judges, their jailers, and, if necessary, their executioners. Sosam belongs to this void. He lives in the stable, not near the stable, not next to it, inside it. His bed is a pile of straw between 2 horse stalls. His pillow is his own arm. The smell of manure, sweat, and rotting hay has soaked so deeply into his skin that even the other servants refuse to sit near him at meals. They call him Horse Dung Sam, Ma Tong Sam, because he tends the horses, because he smells like their leavings, because Sosam alone, they think, is too much dignity for a boy this low. He has been Horse Dung Sam for years now, long enough that when someone calls him by his true name, he does not respond. Not because he does not hear, because he no longer recognizes himself in the sound. Today, like most days, he is being used. Machil, one of the weapon servants of the Danri family, has decided to send him into town to collect a shipment of custom-forged blades. Machil's actual job is to collect the weapons himself. But Machil has better things to do, such as spending his wages on courtesans, and Sosam, being one rung lower than Machil in the servant hierarchy, is the perfect tool. They enter the weapons shop in Bongyang together. The shop owner recognizes Machil at once, greets him warmly, and brings out the finished order. Spears, halberds, sabers, maces, a small mountain of steel, all of it intended for the family's warriors, all of it to be carried back to the estate by hand. The owner glances at Sosam. He glances at the pile. He glances at Machil. "Are just the 2 of you carrying all this back?" he asks. "That is a considerable load." Machil grins. "What is there to worry about?" he says. "I have this excellent horse right here." And he strikes Sosam in the chest. Not a slap, a punch. Sosam collapses to the shop floor without a sound. The owner turns his face away, not because he does not see, because he sees very well, and he has seen it before, and he has learned that stepping between a warrior's fist and a servant's body accomplishes nothing except the reassignment of the fist. He shakes his head slowly. Everyone in Bongyang knows the story of Horse Dung Sam. Nobody has ever intervened. "Get up," Machil says. "Carry the weapons, unless you want to die in that position." Sosam gets up. He does not speak. Speech requires energy. He conserves what little he has by nodding, by bowing, by carrying loads that his skeleton should not be able to support. But silence, in Machil's world, is disrespect. Machil punches him again. Across the face this time, Sosam's lip splits. His tongue tears against the roof of his mouth. Blood trickles between his teeth and drips onto the wooden floor. "Answer me when I speak to you," Machil snarls. "Are you disrespecting me because we share the surname Ma?" "No, sir," Sosam whispers. His voice is a scrape. Dry sand across dry stone. Blood beads at the corner of his mouth as the words come out. Machil kicks him. Again. For sport this time. Sosam tumbles across the floor and slams into the corner of the shop. The owner watches with the same helpless expression as before. Because of this idiot, blood splattered all over the weapons. Machil complains. Useless. Always useless. He leaves for the inn. His parting instruction is simple. Carry every blade back to the estate. Clean every drop of blood off the weapons. If a single drop is missed, Sosam will bleed a bucket for each one. Sosam pulls himself up along the wall. His legs shake. The owner hands him a scrap of cloth to wipe the blood from his mouth. And this small gesture, this tiny act of decency, is enough to make tears rise in his eyes. Because no one else in his life offers even this. He whispers his thanks. He shoulders 2 of the spears. He steps out into the street. The sun is beginning to set over Bongyang. By the time Sosam finishes his work, evening is falling. His breath is ragged. His muscles are burning. The world tilts around him with every step. He has moved every blade. He has cleaned every drop. He has done what a broken body was told to do by a whole one, and now he is going to try to walk to the inn to report the completion. The doorman at the inn takes one look at him and refuses him entry. Sosam is filthy. He reeks of blood and sweat and horse dung mixed with dust. The doorman pinches his nose and waves him away. Sosam turns. He begins the long walk back to the estate. Somewhere in his chest, a small voice is repeating a mantra it has repeated every day of his life. Keep walking. Keep breathing. If you keep living, someday, good days will come. If you keep living, someday, someone will notice you. Someday, someday, someday. He does not know that today is not the day. He does not know that today is the last day. A voice calls to him from the street. "Hey, horse dung Sam." He lifts his heavy eyelids. His vision blurs. He tries to make out the figure walking toward him through the red haze of the setting sun. And then something collides with him. Or he collides with it. His body has lost the ability to tell the difference. "Is this bastard crazy?" The voice says, sharper now. The first fist lands in Sosam's stomach. The second lands beside it. The third finds his ribs. Sosam has been beaten his entire life. He has taken kicks from Machil and slaps from the other servants and stones from village children who thought he was funny. He knows what pain feels like, and he thought he had built up something like a tolerance to it. This is different. These fists carry something behind them. Something that reaches through the muscle and pushes into the organs. Internal energy. The strike of a martial artist, not a common man. Sosam sinks to his knees. Saliva and blood mix in his mouth. His vision, which had been blurred by exhaustion, briefly clears enough for him to recognize the face of his attacker. A warrior of the Danri family. He does not know the name. He knows the uniform. He knows the boots. The next kick lands in his face. "Spare!" Sosam whispers. He cannot finish the word. Another kick takes it from him. He wants to say more. Inside, in the small space of his mind where language still functions, an entire storm is rising. He wants to say that he has done nothing wrong. He wants to say that he has spent his whole life apologizing for existing. He wants, for one impossible second, to say that he would like to kill everyone who has ever hurt him. Machil, this warrior, the Danri family, the village children, the world itself. He wants, more than anything, to smash the world to pieces. But the words that leave his mouth are the same ones he has spoken 1,000 times. Spare, me. They are his last words. The final kick lands. Sosam's head snaps back against the packed dirt of the alley. His breath goes out. It does not come back. Somewhere in a Gangnam villa, 10,000 kilometers and one dimension away, a bored death god has just realized his mistake. Somewhere inside a virtual reality capsule, a serial killer is speaking 2 calm words. Log out. And in the alley in Bongyang, the body of horse dung Sam lies still. The soul that once occupied it is gone. The soul that is about to occupy it is on its way. The alley in Bongyang is quiet. The warrior of the Donri family, having finished his work, wipes his boots against the dirt and walks away without a backward glance. To him, this was nothing. A servant blocked his path. He corrected the servant. In a world governed by martial hierarchy, the correction is legal, moral, and unremarkable. He will not remember Sosam's face by tomorrow morning. He will not remember it by the time he reaches the next street. The body cools in the twilight. A few passers-by glance at the corpse and quicken their step. A stray dog sniffs at the pooling blood and thinks better of it. Bong Yang has learned, over generations, to look away from the leavings of martial artists. Looking is dangerous. Looking creates witnesses. Witnesses create complications. And then, above the alley, the air shivers. No mortal sees it. No mortal could. But the fabric of Realm 1112 develops a wrinkle, and through the wrinkle a figure steps down, robed in the gray fog of the underworld, his eyes half white with focus and terror. Belteruk arrives. He is holding, cradled in his left hand, a soul thread that does not belong here. It is a living thread, still hot with the memories of a Gangnam villa, still warm with the recent decision to log out of a virtual reality game. On the other end of that thread is a consciousness in transit, suspended, waiting. Belteruk drops to one knee beside the body. He works quickly. Death gods, when they wish to be, are extraordinary craftsmen. He seals the severed thread of the original Sosam and lifts it away with the delicacy of a jeweler removing a broken clasp. Then he raises the smuggled thread, aligns it against the newly emptied vessel, and pushes. The graft resists for a fraction of a heartbeat. Then it catches. The body twitches. Belteruk exhales. He completes the final anchor with the tip of his scythe, sealing the new soul into a body that was never intended for it. He does not stay to observe the aftermath. He cannot afford to. The registry expects him at his next assignment, and any delay will raise questions he cannot answer. He rises. He straightens his robe. He glances one final time at the still figure on the ground, at the boy who is no longer a boy and no longer Sosam, and he permits himself a single dry chuckle. "Enjoy Murim, human," he mutters. "You are not my problem anymore." He vanishes. The wrinkle in the air smooths itself away. The body in the alley remains motionless for a long moment. Blood continues to seep from its lip. Bruises continue to blossom across its ribs. To any observer, the corpse is exactly what it appears to be, a dead servant. A pitiful ending. A statistic no one will file. And then, very slowly, the chest rises. The first thing Dong Bong-soo becomes aware of is the pain. It is not distant pain. It is not warning pain. It is the total, screaming, overwhelming pain of a body that has been beaten into ruin. Every rib feels shattered. Every muscle feels torn. His face is so swollen that he can barely part his eyelids. His mouth is filled with the metallic paste of dried blood, and something inside his chest is making a wet sound with every attempt to breathe. For a moment, his consciousness does what any consciousness would do. It tries to identify the situation. Police, he thinks. The word forms clean and cold in his mind. The police have finally caught him. He has always known this day would come. 332 bodies is a lot of bodies, and even the most careful hunter eventually leaves a trace. This must be the interrogation. This must be some rogue detective who decided that the courts would take too long and who arranged for a private conversation in a warehouse somewhere. A short, dry laugh escapes his broken lip. The laugh hurts. It hurts in ways he did not know a body could hurt. But it is also, in its own way, satisfying. He had always suspected this outcome, and now the suspicion is confirmed, and there is a certain peace in confirmation. Then the analytical part of his mind, the part that has never once slept in his adult life, begins to speak. Something is wrong. South Korea, he thinks slowly, is a country that does not permit this. Not officially. Not even in the darkest interrogation rooms. Even a suspect wanted for 332 murders would not be beaten to the point of organ failure without trial. The paperwork alone would destroy the careers of everyone involved. The media would descend. The human rights organizations would descend. No competent officer would order this. So it is not the police. Then who? He forces his eyes open. The lids are swollen so grotesquely that his field of view has been reduced to a slit. Through that slit, He can see the outline of dim moonlight cutting across a wooden floor. Moonlight, not a lamp, not a fluorescent bulb. Moonlight, coming through what appears to be a window with no glass. He turns his head. The muscles in his neck creak like rusted hinges. He suppresses the pain and continues the rotation, 1 degree at a time, until his slitted vision has surveyed the space around him. There are large animals to his left, long faces, long ears, standing in wooden partitions, breathing the slow, patient breaths of creatures at rest. Horses. He is in a stable. The realization is precise. He has never been in a real stable in his life, but he has seen enough of them on television to recognize the geometry, the smell, the ambient patience of it. This is not a police station. This is not a hospital. This is not a warehouse or a basement or any other location that a modern kidnapper would use. This is a place that should not exist in Central Seoul. His mind accelerates. His pupils, hidden behind the swelling, begin to move with the focused speed of a predator in strange terrain. The instincts that have kept him uncaught for decades activate without permission. Every sense he has been given is now searching for the first crack in the illusion, the first tell that will let him understand what has happened to him. He is looking at the face of the nearest horse when he sees the impossible thing. Above the horse's snout, a small pane of semi-transparent text is floating in the air. He turns his head. The horse's face stays where it is. The text follows his eyes. He turns further. The text remains centered in his field of view. He experiments. Left, right, up, down. The floating text tracks his gaze with the perfect fidelity of a heads-up display. It is three-dimensional. It has depth. It is not painted on a screen. It is embedded in the space around him, and it is anchored to his own line of sight. He recognizes the design. He recognizes it because he saw one exactly like it earlier tonight, when a welcome message greeted him inside the Murim Online capsule. Welcome to Murim Online, the world of true powerhouses. Dong Bong-soo's mind arrives at a hypothesis, examines it, and rejects it with cold speed. He has not simply failed to log out. The pain in his ribs is too real. The blood in his mouth tastes too much like blood. The smell of horse manure fills his lungs with a specificity that no simulation, however advanced, has ever managed. If Murim Online could reproduce these sensations, he would have never left the capsule. He would still be inside, hunting whatever the servers offered him. This is not a game, but the interface, undeniably, is the game's. The two facts refuse to fit together. He is not the kind of man who forces facts to fit. He accepts the contradiction. He files it. He continues gathering data. He strains to focus on the floating hologram. His swollen eyelids tear as he opens them wider. Fresh blood traces a thin line down his cheek. His vision does not improve. If anything, the pain worsens the swelling. Then he remembers what a hunter always remembers. If the eyes fail, use the light. He turns his gaze toward the window. The moon obliges him. A shaft of pale silver light falls across his face, and behind that light, the hologram sharpens into legibility. The device has malfunctioned, and logout has failed. Would you like to attempt disconnection again? Yes or no? He reads it 3 times. Device malfunction. Logout failure. Impossible. He raises his hand. The motion sends a wave of agony through his shoulder, but he does not permit himself to react. He extends one finger toward the floating prompt, toward the option labeled No. He selects it. A soft chime rings inside his skull. You have selected No. Then we will return you to Murim Online. 1, 2, 3. A grinding mechanical sound begins to build behind his eyes. It is the sound of a machine failing while pretending to succeed. His brain lights up with something that feels less like discomfort and more like partition. Something is being pulled apart. Something is being reshaped. His consciousness begins to slide backward down a dark corridor, and the last thing he hears is the operator's voice, hollow and untroubled. Then we wish you a pleasant time with Murim Online. The corridor closes. Dong Bong-soo loses consciousness inside the body of Horse Dung Sam. When he wakes again, dawn is pushing pale bars of light through the cracks in the stable wall. He does not know how many days have passed. He does not care. What matters is that he is still here, that the pain is still real, that the interface, though muted, still hovers faintly at the edge of his vision, waiting. Over the following days, he assembles his situation the way a scientist assembles a proof. He is inside the body of someone named Sosam. He deduces this from the way the other people in the estate address him. A stocky, foul-tempered man named Machil visits the stable twice a day, spitting insults and delivering thin bowls of rice gruel. Machil calls him Horse Dung Sam. Machil calls him idiot. Machil calls him mute. Dongbong Su, being a professional, does nothing to correct any of these labels. He observes. He learns that Machil's tirades follow a predictable pattern: complaints about extra work, complaints about the family's expectations, complaints about the money he does not have. Within these complaints are embedded useful facts: the name of the family that owns the estate, the name of the town outside its walls, the name of the province, the name of the country's ruling dynasty. None of the names match anything Dongbong Su knows from Earth. He learns that the people here speak a form of Chinese, but it is not any Chinese he can immediately place. The vocabulary is archaic. The phrasing is formal. The rhythms are stylized. It is the kind of Chinese one would encounter in an old wuxia novel, not on a modern street in Beijing or Shanghai. He learns that at dawn every morning and again at dusk every evening, a distant sound reaches him from beyond the stable walls, the sound of dozens of voices in unison, the sharp crack of wood against wood, the whistle of blades cutting air with an economy no ordinary athlete could produce. On the third morning, curiosity overcomes caution, and he drags his broken body to a knothole in the far wall to look. What he sees stops his breath. Warriors are training in the courtyard beyond. 24 of them. They are moving in ways that no human body should be able to move. One of them leaps 20 feet into the air and lands on a wooden post the width of his palm. Another sweeps a sword through a stack of 5 stone tiles, and every tile parts cleanly at exactly the same height. A third does something Dongbong Su cannot even categorize, a blur of motion that ends with 3 practice dummies decapitated in the space of a heartbeat. Dongbong Su watches for a long time. Then he lowers himself back to the straw and closes his eyes and begins to laugh. It is not a loud laugh. It never travels past his teeth. But inside his chest, inside the mind that has always been the loneliest room in the universe, something enormous and unfamiliar is happening. Something he has not felt since he was a very young child, before he understood what he was, before he learned to hide it. He is delighted. For the first time in his adult life, he is genuinely, uncomplicatedly delighted. Because if these people can fly through the air, if their swords can split stone, then this is not a game. Games can approximate spectacle, but they cannot approximate reality. He can smell the sweat. He can hear the sharp exhale of breath before each strike. He can feel the impact of feet on packed earth vibrating faintly through the floor of the stable. This is real. This world is real. And it is a world in which warriors of impossible strength exist. The implications cascade through his mind like dominoes. If warriors this strong exist, then a hierarchy exists. A hierarchy always exists, and hierarchy means there are those at the top and those at the bottom. In a world where the top of the hierarchy can split stone, the ordinary rules of law, of justice, of policing must be suspended or renegotiated. This world cannot be governed the way modern Korea is governed. It cannot afford to be. When strength is this asymmetric, government must either partner with the strong or accept irrelevance, which means the strong operate freely, which means the strong hunt freely, which means Dongbong Su has just crash-landed in a world where his hobby is not an outlaw activity. It is a profession. It is a way of life. It is, if he plays his cards correctly, an entire civilization structured around the very thing he was born to do. Inside the shabby stable, buried under a body that smells of manure and blood, an unprecedented demon is being conceived. He does not laugh out loud, but somewhere in the marrow of his stolen bones, something ancient wakes up and begins to sharpen its teeth. The next phase of his adaptation is systematic. Dongbong Su has always been systematic. Whether he was planning a murder in a Gangnam apartment or acquiring a new language for the pleasure of it, he approached every problem with the same discipline. Now, in this new life, that discipline turns to the twin questions that will determine his survival. First, what is this body capable of? Second, what is this interface still offering him? He conducts his experiments carefully. Machil visits twice a day. The visits are brief, hostile, and predictable. In the hours between, Dongbong-soo has complete privacy. He uses that privacy the way a captured spy uses solitude, one deliberate minute at a time. The body is weak. That much is immediate. So-sam was undernourished, overworked, and repeatedly injured for years. The muscles have atrophied. The joints creak. The digestive system does not process food efficiently. Recovery will not be quick, and Dongbong-soo recognizes this without frustration. Impatience is a luxury of the young. He is neither young nor impatient. The interface is a different matter. He tests it during the long night hours when the stable is silent and the horses are asleep. He speaks quietly to himself, testing keywords, watching for reactions in the corner of his vision. Status window. A translucent panel unfolds in the air before him. Most of the fields are corrupted, filled with question marks and glitched text. But one field displays cleanly. Level. And, beside the word level, a single number. 1. Skill window. Another panel unfolds. Empty. Every slot corrupted. Map. A grid appears. Blank. Unpopulated. Inventory. The inventory opens. And unlike every other window, the inventory is fully functional. He stares at it for a long time. The original Murim Online, as he remembers from his brief time inside it, used a conventional slot-based inventory. One weapon per slot. One potion per slot. A grid of squares that a player would drag items into like a shopping cart. That is not what he is looking at now. What he is looking at is a room. A vast, cubic, translucent room, floating in a dimension he cannot quite point to but can somehow reach into. He extends his hand toward the interface, and the interface responds. His hand does not physically move into the space, but a phantom hand does, and that phantom hand can grip, lift, position, and place. He experiments with a piece of straw. He experiments with a rusted nail he finds in the corner of the stall. He experiments with a small stone. Each object, when he wills it, is drawn into the cubic space and stored there. Each object, when he wills it back, appears in his physical hand exactly as it left. There is no size limit that he can find. There is no weight limit that he can find. The cubic space is enormous. He estimates it at roughly 100 pyong of volume, which is to say, the size of a small warehouse. He writes this observation down. Or rather, he intends to write it down. He has no paper, he has no ink, he has no brush. He solves this problem the way he has solved every problem in his life, by becoming his own supplier. The rats in the stable are quick, but he is quicker. He constructs a rudimentary trap using rotted wood, straw, and a stone counterweight. Within a week he has caught more than a dozen of them. He skins each one. He dries the skins in the sunlight. He empties their blood into a small pouch fashioned from another skin. He gathers coarse hair from the horse's manes and binds it into a crude brush. Rat leather becomes paper. Rat blood becomes ink. Horsehair becomes brush. He writes his first Murim language manual on the inside of a curled sheet of rat skin, using the alphabet of his native Korean to transliterate the archaic Chinese sounds he has been hearing. The manual grows. Over the following weeks, it expands into an entire lexicon. He fills sheet after sheet with tiny, precise script. His handwriting, even under these conditions, is meticulous. Every character is upright. Every column is aligned. If any calligrapher of this world were ever to see it, they would be impressed, perhaps unsettled. Because handwriting, in the traditional saying, is the window to the soul, and the soul revealed by this handwriting is one that does not tremble. While he studies, he also eats. Rats become his primary meat source. He removes the internal organs, dries the flesh, and consumes it in small, calorie-dense portions. He supplements this diet with insects, which he catches by the hundreds and stores inside the inventory. Ants, larvae, beetles. High in protein, low in volume. In modern Korea, entrepreneurs are already marketing edible insects as the food of the future. Dongbong-soo has read the studies. He knows the numbers. He allows himself, briefly, to appreciate the irony. Every meal accelerates his recovery. Every entry into the manual accelerates his fluency. By the time a month has passed, he can understand almost every word Machil speaks. By the time 2 months have passed, he could hold a conversation. He continues to pretend he cannot. Because a mute idiot is invisible in a way that a competent servant is not. A mute idiot is beneath suspicion. A mute idiot can be present in rooms where confidential matters are discussed. A mute idiot can walk through the marketplace and hear the gossip of strangers who assume he cannot understand them. The disguise is not humiliation. The disguise is a weapon. He commits to it fully. When Machil discovers that Sosam still cannot speak even after the body has healed, he coins a new insult. Mute Sam. Byong Ao Ri Sam. The other servants pick it up within a week. Soon it spreads to the marketplace, where the children of merchants throw it at his back along with occasional stones. Byong Ao Ri Sam. Mute idiot. Horse-dung fool. Every additional insult, in Dongbong Su's accounting, is an additional layer of camouflage. He notes them all. He forgets none of them. Somewhere in the depths of a mind that has never once processed injury without cataloging its author, a ledger is being written. It is not a ledger of grievance. Grievance is a herbivore's emotion. Grievance requires the belief that the world owes you something. It is a ledger of resources. Every person who has struck him, spat at him, or humiliated him is being logged as a potential future kill. Not for revenge, for utility, practice, convenience, experience points, if the interface is honest about what it is offering. He has not yet confirmed whether killing humans in this world raises his level. That confirmation is coming. While he waits for his body to reach the threshold of usefulness, he catalogs his discoveries with the same rigor he once brought to his hobby and soul. He calls this world New Murim Online. The name is a private joke. The Murim Online operator, in its final broken sentence before his consciousness was ripped out of the capsule, had wished him a pleasant time with the game. Very well. He will oblige. If a corrupted system has decided that his life is now a game, he will play it. He will play it better than anyone has ever played anything. He will play it until he has mapped every mechanic, exploited every loophole, and reduced this entire dimension to a well-understood set of rules. The first rule he formally establishes is about the inventory. New Murim Online, first law. The inventory is not a slot system. It is a space system. The interior is a cube of approximately 100 pyong in volume, with equal dimensions of length, width, and depth. He writes this down in the margin of his ratskin manual. He underlines it once. Then he begins to test its edges. He tries to store water. It works, though the water pools inside the cube and requires careful retrieval. He tries to store fire from a stray ember. It fails. Living flames apparently do not qualify. He tries to store a live rat. It fails. Living things, apparently, are outside the system's mandate. He tries objects of varying sizes. Small stones, medium stones. A wooden beam he pries loose from a rotting corner of the stable and returns before Machil can notice. Each object goes in without resistance. Each returns as it left. He experiments with orientation, with speed of retrieval, with precision of placement. The inventory obeys with the patience of a perfectly designed tool. Then he tries something new. He extends his hand toward an object without touching it. He wills it into storage. The inventory refuses. He extends his hand and touches the object, even briefly. He wills it into storage. The inventory accepts. He records this observation as well. New Murim Online, second law. The inventory accepts any object that is in direct physical contact with any part of Dongbong Su's body, provided the object is smaller than the cube and provided it is not living matter. He looks at this rule for a long time. Direct contact. He thinks about the implications. An object in his hand can be stored instantly, but so can an object he steps on, an object that brushes his sleeve, an object that touches the sole of his foot, an object that, for even the briefest instant, rests against his skin. If he can touch an object, he can make it disappear. If he can make it disappear, he can also make it reappear anywhere on his body he chooses, in his palm, between his teeth, beneath his foot, against the throat of another person. If he arranges the moment correctly, he does not smile. But something in his face, if any observer had been present to see it, would have looked very much like the expression a carpenter makes when he first picks up a perfect tool. He continues his experiments. He tests the boundaries. He tests the limits. He tests the extraction speed. An object stored in the inventory can be retrieved instantly, at any location on his body, in any orientation he chooses. The retrieval is soundless. The retrieval requires no gesture. The retrieval requires only intent. He considers what this means for combat. He considers what this means for concealment. He considers what this means for the disposal of evidence. By the time the seasons have begun to change, and the first cold winds of autumn are pushing under the stable door, he has become intimately familiar with every property of the inventory. He has stored, retrieved, and restored hundreds of objects. He has practiced the extraction until it takes less than a heartbeat. He has learned to conceal the motion so completely that no observer could see anything unusual. Only a hand rising, a hand falling, a moment of silence. The inventory is not a game feature. The inventory is a weapon. And Dongbong-soo, once a specialist in blades and garrotes and the small chemistry of household poisons, is now a specialist in something no man in this world has ever encountered. When the season fully turns and a chill wind begins to sweep down from the northern mountains, Dongbong-soo judges that his body has recovered enough to leave the stable. He walks with a shuffle. He does not look people in the eye. He bows his head at anyone who addresses him. His shoulders hunch. His mouth hangs slightly open, as if the muscles of his jaw have forgotten how to close all the way. When mocked, he responds with a slow, uncertain smile. When struck, he flinches without complaint. He plays the fool with such absolute commitment that within a week, no one in the estate remembers that he might once have been anything else. Sosam had been pitied. Mute Sam is beneath pity. The insults escalate. The children in the marketplace invent new syllables to attach to his name. Shit fool, horse mute, excrement idiot. The adults smile at these inventions and let them stand. Even the beggars along the road refuse to acknowledge him, because acknowledging him would place them one rung higher on the ladder of dignity, and no beggar wants to relinquish that rung. Dongbong-soo absorbs every insult with an outward face of vacant confusion. Inside, the ledger grows. He learns the geography of Bongyang by being chased through it. He learns the culture of the martial world by being ignored while sitting near the tables of talkative merchants. He learns the customs of the Danri family by cleaning the rooms of warriors who complain freely in front of him because they assume he cannot understand a word. Every corner of the town becomes a map. Every family in the town becomes a dossier. Every warrior of the Danri family, every servant of the Danri family, every regular customer of the Danri family's suppliers is placed into an internal database that he maintains with the meticulousness of a career intelligence officer. By the end of the second month, he knows more about Bongyang than most people who have lived here their entire lives. He knows which alleys are watched at night. He knows which merchants pay bribes and to whom. He knows the schedule of the town's inspector and the frequency of his patrols. He knows the location of the Bongyang Inn and the layout of its rooms, and the identity of the servant who assigns each guest to each chamber. He knows the name of the man who has tormented him most consistently since his awakening, and the name of the courtesan that man visits every payday, and the layout of the room in which that visit occurs. He knows the shape of the wall between that room and the room next to it. He knows the structure of the wooden pillars that make up that wall. He knows exactly how a person with an inventory that can accept any object in direct contact with his skin might, in theory, remove one of those pillars in silence, cross into the adjacent room, and reinstall the pillar behind him without leaving a trace. He has not yet acted on any of this knowledge. Not yet. He is being patient. He is being precise. He is doing what a true hunter always does before the first strike. He is watching. And in the darkness of the stable, in the small hours when even the horses are asleep, he opens the corrupted status window one more time and studies the single functional field. Level 1. He looks at the number for a long time. He does not need the system to tell him what he must do to change it. He already knows. The day Dongbong-soo chooses for his first kill is not chosen for symbolism. He does not select it because of the weather. He does not select it because of the moon. He does not select it because of any of the small, dramatic reasons that a novelist would invent for such a moment. He selects it because it is Machil's payday. and because he has already established that Machil, upon receiving his wages, will spend them at the Bongyang Inn in the company of a courtesan. Predictability is a hunter's best friend. Machil is nothing if not predictable. On the morning of the chosen day, Dong Bong-su rises before dawn and completes every task Machil has been assigned. He cleans the weapon racks. He sweeps the armory. He oils the practice blades. He stacks the polearms in the neat rows Machil is supposed to maintain but rarely does. He works with the same soundless efficiency he brings to every task now, and by the time the sun clears the roof of the estate, Machil's entire day of labor is already complete. He leaves a small leather pouch on top of the stack. Inside the pouch are a few coins. Not many, just enough to look like a tribute from a grateful subordinate. The gesture is deliberate. It is calibrated. Dong Bong-su has watched Machil for months, and he has noted the particular kind of greed that lives in the man's face. Machil is not the kind of predator who takes without provocation. Machil is the kind of predator who wants to feel that his cruelty has been earned, that the world has decided to reward him. A voluntary offering will please him in a way that a stolen coin never would. It will confirm his worldview. It will tell him, in the small dialect of tribute, that Sosam has finally learned his place. It will also, Dong Bong-su knows, encourage Machil to spend the day at the Bongyang Inn in a slightly more expensive room than usual. He is counting on this. When Machil arrives at the armory later that morning and discovers the completed work and the small pouch on top, his reaction is exactly what Dong Bong-su has predicted. He grunts in surprise. He picks up the pouch. He examines the coins. A slow, greasy smile spreads across his face. That bastard, he mutters to himself, weighing the pouch in his palm. He has finally learned how to get by in the world. He tucks the pouch into his belt and hums a low, off-key tune as he leaves the armory. His stride is looser than usual. His shoulders are lifted. A man with money in his belt walks differently from a man without it, and Machil is walking like a man whose day has just been upgraded. He is thinking, Dong Bong-su knows, about which courtesan he will visit. He is thinking, specifically, about a young woman named Choseon. Choseon is not Machil's usual choice. Choseon is one of the more expensive courtesans at the Bongyang Inn, a woman who has only recently completed her initiation and whose youth is still a marketable feature. On ordinary paydays, Machil settles for the cheapest option the inn has to offer. On today's payday, thanks to the small pouch from Mute Sam, Machil can afford to reach one rung higher. He will reach. He always reaches. Dong Bong-su waits for a slow count of 100 after Machil disappears down the road. Then he leads Yoro out of the stable, adjusts his shabby clothes, and begins his own walk toward the Bongyang Inn. He is not hurrying. A hunter never hurries at this stage. He is arriving. The Bongyang Inn stands at the eastern edge of the entertainment district, its lantern-lit facade already bright against the early evening. Its trade is not a secret. Everyone in Bongyang knows that the ground floor sells food, the upper floors sell company, and the authorities have been paid enough silver to see none of it. Dong Bong-su reaches the entrance and stops. The servant at the door recognizes him, or rather, recognizes the shape of him. Mute Sam is a known figure in the marketplace, and the servant's face rearranges itself into the particular contempt reserved for creatures who exist below one's own rung on the ladder. He pinches his nose with 2 fingers. "Sosam? What brings you here?" he asks, in a tone designed to force Sosam to leave without answering. Dong Bong-su lets his face slacken. He raises a hand and offers the servant a small leather pouch, this one lighter than the first, but still audibly full of coin. He does not speak. He does not need to. He drools slightly, deliberately, as he opens his mouth and produces a single, halting syllable. "Woe, woe." The servant's eyebrows lift. Understanding dawns. It is followed almost instantly by a laugh that is more disgust than mirth. "You bastard," the servant says, snickering as he pockets the coins. "Playing at being a man now. Go in. Second to last room on this floor. One of the girls will attend to you shortly." Dong Bong-su bows his head. He shuffles past the servant. He climbs the stairs with the same shambling, hunched gait he has practiced for months. Behind him, the servant is already turning his attention to the next customer, muttering under his breath about how even Bongyang's cripples are apparently now allowed to buy time with the courtesans. He does not see Dong Bong-soo's face. He does not see the small, precise smile that appears on Mute Sam's lips the moment his back is turned. The staircase creaks under his weight. The corridor at the top of the stairs runs the length of the second floor. Rooms line both sides. The layout is exactly as he has memorized it. The room reserved for Machil is at the far end of the corridor. The room he has just been assigned is directly beside it. He enters his room. He closes the door. He waits. Through the shared wall he can hear, faintly, the sounds of a couple already engaged in enthusiastic exercise. Machil's breathing. Choseon's coached. Professional cries. The rhythmic complaint of a wooden bed frame under stress. Dong Bong-soo listens for a long moment. He listens not for the sounds themselves, but for the pace. He is measuring. He is timing. Every hunter, whether he stalks deer or lion or man, must know how long his prey has left before the moment of maximum vulnerability arrives. He calculates. Machil is a man of poor endurance. Machil's rhythm is already accelerating in the way that suggests the last stretch. He has perhaps 4 minutes remaining, perhaps 5 if he attempts to prolong. Dong Bong-soo walks calmly to the far wall of his room and draws aside the tiger-striped cloth that hangs over it. Behind the cloth is the wall he has been thinking about for weeks. Vertical wooden pillars, arranged in the pattern of a river character, side by side, fitted into grooves in the ceiling beam above and the floor beam below. In a house of this construction style, no single pillar can be removed without dismantling the entire wall. The design of the joinery makes it structurally impossible for an ordinary man. Dong Bong-soo places his palm against the pillar at the very end of the row. He allows his fingers to brush the wood, allowing the necessary contact. He wills. The pillar vanishes. A hole opens in the wall. Person-sized. Silent. Instant. He steps through. He is now standing in Mahil's room. Mahil is oblivious. He is on the bed, his back to the wall Dong Bong-soo has just crossed, his hands gripping Choseon's hips with the possessive urgency of a man who has paid too much and intends to extract every coin's worth. Choseon is on her hands and knees, matching his rhythm with the professional cadence her training has given her, producing exactly the sounds Machil most wants to hear. Neither of them senses the shadow that has entered the room. Dong Bong-soo moves like water. He does not walk. He glides. His feet make no sound on the wooden floor. His breath does not disturb the air. He has practiced this gait for years in a previous life, in a country where a single creaking floorboard could send him to prison for the rest of his existence. Here, in a room filled with the wet slap of skin against skin and the labored breathing of two absorbed bodies, his approach is entirely invisible. From the inventory, he retrieves a length of cloth. He grips both ends. He raises it above Machil's head. He wraps it around Machil's throat and pulls. Machil's eyes fly open. The rhythm on the bed does not stop, because Choseon, absorbed in her own performance, does not immediately notice that her client's hands have gone rigid on her hips. She only notices that the pace has suddenly changed, that Machil is trembling now, that his lower body is moving with a strange, jerking urgency that she has not experienced from him before. She interprets it as passion. She responds accordingly. Her cries rise in pitch. Her back arches. Her body accelerates toward the climax she has been building toward. Machil is dying. Machil's face has turned the color of overripe fruit. His pupils have rolled upward until only the whites remain. His fingers scrabble uselessly at the cloth around his neck, but Dong Bong-soo's grip is precise, and the position of the garrote gives Machil no leverage. His trembling, mistaken by Choseon for enthusiasm, is the small dance that everybody performs when it realizes its air supply has been permanently interrupted. The dance lasts less than 30 seconds. Then Machil is still. Dong Bong-soo holds the cloth for an additional count of 10, because a hunter does not release his grip until the count is complete. Then he lowers the body with the care of a man setting down a fragile parcel and steps around to the side of the bed. Choseon has still not noticed. Her back is arched. Her eyes are closed. She is riding the final wave of a climax she has been building toward for minutes, and the rhythm of Machil's lower body, though now the rhythm of a corpse, is still pressing against her, exactly as it was a moment before. Dong Bong-soo presses his knee against the small of Machil's back. He pushes. The dead man's hips respond to the pressure the way a puppet responds to strings. Choseon's body, already tuned to the peak of physiological response, absorbs the pressure and translates it back into what she believes to be pleasure. Her cries redouble, her body trembles. The climax she was riding accelerates beyond anything she has ever experienced. She reaches it. She screams. Dong Bong-soo watches this without expression. He is not aroused. He is not disgusted. He is measuring something. His eyes are focused on the faint, translucent gauge that has appeared in the corner of his vision, the gauge that has been dormant since the moment he woke up in this world. The gauge is moving, very slightly, almost imperceptibly, but moving. He now has the confirmation he needed. Human life, in this world, produces experience points. He lets Choseon finish. He is generous, in his way, about small things. She has provided him with a critical data point, and he sees no need to interrupt her final pleasure before she loses access to all pleasures forever. When her body finally stills, and her breath finally slows, and her mouth finally closes around the last small sigh of a life that will not continue past this moment, he unwraps the cloth from Machil's neck. He wraps it around hers. There is a soft crack. Choseon dies with a small, surprised sound, still riding the afterglow of the greatest pleasure of her short life. Dong Bong-soo watches the gauge again. It moves. Slightly, less than before. He files this away. A weaker person, a person with less capacity for violence in their history, produces fewer experience points than a stronger one. Machil, whose life was built on the routine practice of cruelty, contributed more to the gauge than Choseon, whose life was built on the routine practice of survival. The system is measuring something, perhaps the residual weight of a soul, perhaps the calibrated capacity for harm, perhaps something else entirely. He will need more data to be certain. He will have opportunities to gather it. For now, there is the matter of the scene. He works with the calm speed of a man who has done this hundreds of times. He arranges the two bodies. He rigs a length of cloth to the crossbeam above the bed. He lifts Choseon first, because her body is lighter, and he ties her by the neck to the beam. He lifts Machil second and does the same. He steps back and evaluates the tableau. Two figures hanging from the beam. A closed room. No windows, no signs of struggle. A perfect suicide. He returns to the wall he crossed. He steps back through the hole. He reaches into the inventory. The pillar reappears in the empty slot, fitted perfectly into the grooves above and below, indistinguishable from the pillars around it. The wall is whole again. The room is sealed again. He draws the tiger-striped cloth back across the wall in his own chamber, concealing the last evidence of what has just happened. He walks to the center of his room and sits down on the bed. He waits. A minute passes. 2. Then a soft knock at the door. He opens it. A courtesan enters, bearing a heavy tray of food. This is his alibi. This is his witness. He has paid for a meal and company, and both are now arriving, exactly on the schedule he arranged with the servant downstairs. The courtesan sets down the tray. She smiles at him. She begins to remove her outer garment. Dong Bong-soo lets her. He needs the witness to see him engaged. He needs the sounds of his room to match the sounds of any other paying customer's room. He needs, for the record of everyone who might later investigate the events of this evening, to have been elsewhere, harmlessly occupied, an idiot spending his tribute money on a fantasy he cannot even articulate. He performs the fantasy well. His technique, sharpened in a previous life across dozens of anonymous encounters, does not resemble the technique of a mute stable boy. If Choseon were still alive, she would have felt the difference. If the woman under his hands could compare notes with Choseon, both would notice that Bong Yang has, without anyone realizing it, become home to two different men in the space of a single evening. The courtesan under him is delighted. Unused men. She has never been paid so well for a service that has become so unexpectedly good. Her cries rise, her body responds, her eyes close in the small, absorbed way of a woman for whom this hour is no longer purely commercial. She does not turn her head. If she had turned her head, she would have seen his eyes. His eyes are calm, his eyes are empty. His eyes hold the calm, cold quality of a river that has been flowing for millennia through the black stones of a valley no living creature has ever mapped. There is no cruelty in them. There is no lust. There is no hate. There is only the measured, patient watching of a hunter who has just completed the first strike of what will be a very long campaign. Outside, above the roof of the Bongyang Inn, the sky splits open with a sudden, unexpected crack of thunder. Rain begins to fall. It is not the rainy season. The heavens, for reasons neither the meteorologists nor the priests of this world will later be able to explain, have decided to weep. Perhaps they know something the mortals below do not. Perhaps they can feel what has just entered their world. Later that night, in the stable, Dong Bong-su lies awake beneath the horse's quiet breathing and reviews his findings. The Bongyang Inn incident has confirmed 2 additional laws of the world he now inhabits. New Murim Online, second law, confirmed. Any object in direct physical contact with any part of Dong Bong-su's body can be stored in or retrieved from the inventory, provided the object is smaller than the cube and provided it is not a living organism. Wooden structural pillars qualify. New Murim Online, third law, established. The killing of insects and small animals does not increase the experience gauge. The killing of humans does. There appears to be a variation in experience yield based on the human being killed. The exact parameter driving that variation is not yet identified. He underlines the third law twice. The variation is the key. If every human produced the same yield, then the fastest path to power would be the highest volume of kills. That is a strategy he could execute, but it is inefficient. In this world, where masters can level mountains, brute volume against weak targets would take him decades to level up meaningfully. If, however, the yield varies by strength or capacity of the victim, then the fastest path is not volume, it is quality. He must find stronger prey. Not yet. He is not ready for stronger prey. The martial artists of the Danri family, even the weakest ones, are still capable of killing him with a single strike. He has watched them train. He has seen the internal energy in their movements. He knows what happens when a man like Sosam meets a man like the warrior who kicked Sosam to death in an alley. He needs an intermediate step. He needs a class of prey stronger than the ordinary citizen, but weaker than the martial artist. A middle rung on the ladder, a rung he can climb. He does not yet know what that rung is called. He will discover it soon. For now, he closes his eyes. He allows his stolen body to sleep. In the corner of his vision, the experience gauge remains as it was after the Bongyang Inn, a hair's breadth above where it started but still overwhelmingly empty. It will take many more nights like this one to fill. He is not troubled by this. He has time. He has, if the interface is telling the truth, an entire lifetime. In the weeks that follow, Bongyang begins to bury an unusual number of its citizens. The first 2 are Machil and Choseon, discovered in the sealed room of the Bongyang Inn by the shocked owner. Both are hanging from the crossbeam. Both are naked. There is no note. There are no signs of struggle. The wooden wall of the room is intact. The doors are closed from the inside. The inn owner declares it a suicide. A lover's pact, he tells the constables who arrive to inspect the scene. He has seen such things before. Sometimes, he says, passion overwhelms the heart, and the lovers cannot bear the thought of returning to their separate lives. The constables accept the explanation. They have no reason not to. 3 days later, a merchant in the eastern quarter is found dead in his study. He has hanged himself from a rafter using a length of silk rope. The doors are locked from the inside. His wife has been at the market for 2 hours. There is no note. A week after that, a moneylender in the northern quarter is discovered hanging in his storeroom. His accountant, who has the only other key, has been in Hefei for 3 days. There is no note. 2 days after that, a corrupt tax collector, known for extorting the poorest families in Bongyang, is found dead in his bedroom, hanging from the beam. His door was locked. His windows were shuttered. There is no note. By the end of the first month, 28 people are dead. By the end of the second month, 97. By the end of the third month, the number has passed 200. Bongyang, a city that ordinarily records 1 or 2 suicides in a month, has suddenly become a city where the coffin makers cannot keep up with demand. The apothecaries run out of the herbs used to prepare bodies for burial. The undertakers begin to work in shifts. The families of the dead crowd the temples to burn paper offerings for souls they cannot understand losing. Rumors begin to spread. Some say a hungry ghost has entered the city and is possessing the weak, driving them to end their own lives. Some say the spirits of unburied victims from an old massacre have returned to demand new company in the underworld. Some say a strange kind of insect, a parasitic worm invisible to the human eye, has begun to burrow into the brains of Bongyang's citizens and compel them to kill themselves. The wilder rumors, as always in such times, concern the martial world. An evil cult, some whisper, has moved into the region. A demonic sect that harvests the vital essence of ordinary people to cultivate its dark techniques. There are precedents. There have been sects in the past that killed for essence, for organs, for the accumulation of internal energy. Perhaps a new one has arrived, and perhaps it is disguising its harvest as suicide. The rumors are half wrong. There is no cult, but there is a harvester. He is, at this moment, walking a magnificent white Fergana horse through the streets of Bongyang, wearing the shabby clothes of a stable boy, keeping his head lowered as respectable citizens step around him and mutter under their breath. Nobody sees him. Nobody notices him. He is Mute Sam. He is Horse Dung Sam. He is the fool the marketplace has agreed to ignore. And in his inventory, at this exact moment, are the folded clothes of 3 of the more recent dead. Each set was worn by its owner in the final hour of that owner's life. Each set was carefully removed and stored after the scene was arranged. Each set represents a small increment on a gauge that only Dong Bong-soo can see. He has killed 196 people in Bongyang. The gauge is now approximately 1/3 full. He has calculated the trajectory. He knows what this rate of return means. At this rate, achieving even a single level increase will take him more than a year, perhaps 2. The marginal utility of killing ordinary citizens has begun to decline, and he can feel the ceiling of what this class of prey can offer him. He needs to escalate. He has known this for weeks. He has been holding off for a specific reason. The next tier of prey, the intermediate rung he has identified as necessary, is not immediately accessible. He does not yet know where to find them. He does not yet know how they are organized. He does not yet know how they will respond to being hunted. He has been waiting for the intermediate rung to reveal itself. Today, without knowing it, the intermediate rung is about to reveal itself. Inside the walls of the Donri family estate, a meeting is being held that Dong Bong-soo cannot yet observe. At the head of a long, polished table sits Danri Cheon-woo, the master of the Danri family, a man in his late 50s with a beard streaked silver and eyes that miss very little. The wall behind him is hung with the sect's ancestral swords. The lamps around the room have been trimmed to the same height, a small marker of the discipline that permeates every corner of the estate. Across from him sits the inspector of Bongyang, a middle-aged official in the robes of the imperial bureaucracy. The inspector is sweating despite the cool room. He has come to make a request that would ordinarily be beneath the dignity of a martial family, and he is not certain it will be granted. He explains the situation. 231 suicides in 3 months. The pattern is impossible. The number is impossible. The city cannot function under such a weight of unexplained death. The imperial authorities have refused to send experts, because Bongyang is not a large enough city to justify their attention. The local constables are exhausted and demoralized. The rumors are eroding public order. The inspector fears that if this continues for another month, panic will spread beyond his ability to contain. He needs help. He needs the help of the only organization in Bongyang capable of investigating what the constables cannot. He needs the Donri family's Black 5 group. Donri Cheonu listens without interruption. He is a practical man. The relationship between a martial sect and the imperial authorities is delicate, and every request for cooperation is also a transaction. The inspector is offering something without saying so: gratitude, political favor, perhaps, in the future, a discreet ruling on some border dispute or trade concession. All of this is understood, none of it is spoken. When the inspector finishes, Danri Cheonu nods once. The Black 5 group will investigate, he says. You will have their report within the month. The inspector bows so deeply his forehead nearly touches the table. He leaves. Danri Cheonu summons his aide, and issues the assignment. The Black Five Group is the Danri family's intelligence and enforcement organization. It has no equal within the province, and its information-gathering reputation is such that even the beggars of the beggar sect, who consider themselves the finest intelligence network in the martial world, defer to it on matters within Bongyang. The head of the Black Five Group is a man named Gi Dae-hyo, a veteran of every kind of battle the martial world can generate, and his son Gi Man-ji serves as his deputy. Within the hour, Gi Dae-hyo has received the assignment. Within another hour, he has begun to read the case files. He reads slowly, he reads twice, he strokes his short, graying beard as he reads, the habitual gesture of a man whose thoughts are moving faster than his eyes. By the time he closes the last file, he has developed an opinion. The opinion is that this is not a suicide epidemic. He cannot yet articulate the reason for the opinion. Every case, considered in isolation, is a defensible suicide. Every scene is sealed. Every body is arranged in a plausible position. Every victim can be reasonably said to have had a motive to end their own life. If he were reading these files without the pattern of the other 230 around them, he would sign the constable's reports and move on. But he is not reading them in isolation. He is reading them all at once. And the pattern he sees, the pattern only a veteran investigator would recognize, is that too many of the victims had no reason to end their lives. 20% at least were people whose circumstances were stable, whose relationships were intact, whose businesses were prospering. People do sometimes commit suicide for reasons no one can see. But not 20% of a random sample. Not this many. Not this fast. Someone is killing them. Someone is killing them in a way that leaves no evidence. Someone is killing them in a way that suggests skill so refined that it borders on the impossible. Gi Dae-hyo strokes his beard again. His eyes narrow. He calls for his son. Man-ji. Yes, father. Who was the first? Ji Man-ji, who has anticipated this question, has the answer ready. A weapon servant of our own family named Ma-chil, and a courtesan named Choseon. Both were found hanging in a sealed room at the Bongyang Inn. Gi Dae-hyo lifts his head. Something in the corner of his mouth tightens. Our own family. Yes, father. Let us go there. Now? Now. Ji Man-ji hesitates. It is unusual for the head of the Black Five Group to visit a crime scene personally. Ordinarily, the work is delegated to a team of investigators who report their findings up the chain. That Gi Dae-hyo intends to walk the ground himself is a signal that he takes this case with unusual seriousness. Ji Man-ji does not argue. He follows his father out of the Black Five Hall. The two of them deploy their movement techniques and vanish eastward across the estate, toward the main gate, toward the streets of Bongyang, toward a small second-floor room at the end of a corridor at the Bongyang Inn. They do not know that at this exact moment, in the marketplace on the opposite side of the city, Dong Bong-soo is walking Yeoro past an alley in which a group of desperate men are watching him with hungry eyes. They do not know that within the next hour, the killer they are hunting will produce his first true burst of experience points. They do not know that they will arrive at the Bongyang Inn just as another chapter of the case they are investigating is being written on the other side of the city, in an alley whose blood, by the time the sun sets, will already have been perfectly cleaned. Before the alley, before the encounter that will change everything, Dong Bong-soo has spent months earning something that no other servant in the Danri family possesses: the trust of a horse. Not any horse, a specific horse. A creature named Yeoro, whose lineage traces back to the Fergana breed that emperors once fought wars to obtain. Yeoro is white from mane to hoof. Yeoro is faster than any animal in the province. Yeoro is the personal mount of the master of the Danri family, and Yeoro is, by unanimous agreement of every stable hand who has ever tried to manage him, the most difficult creature ever born. Before Sosum became Dong Bong-soo, Yeoro had thrown 3 grooms in a single season and lamed 2 of them so badly they could no longer work. The stablemaster had considered having the horse gelded to calm his temperament. Only Danri Chonu's personal affection for the animal had prevented this. Yeoro was a legend of ill temper. Yeoro was a punishment assignment. Yeoro was the last horse in the estate that anyone would voluntarily approach. Which is why, when Mute Sam quietly began appearing in Yeoro's stall each morning and each evening, no one paid attention. For the first few days, Yeoro reared and snorted the way Yeoro reared and snorted at every human who dared to enter his space. Dongbong-soo did not react. He did not flinch. He did not raise his hands. He did not attempt to touch the animal, or soothe it, or feed it, or speak to it. He simply stood inside the stall, at the far corner, with his hands folded behind his back, and he watched. Animals, Dongbong-soo has always known, understand something about human beings that most human beings will not admit to themselves. They can smell the interior. They can smell fear. They can smell aggression. They can smell, most importantly, the presence of a predator who is not currently interested in them. Yeoro smelled a predator. Yeoro also smelled that the predator was not hunting him. By the fourth day, Yeoro had stopped rearing. By the second week, Yeoro was accepting food from Dongbong-soo's hand. By the end of the first month, Yeoro was walking beside him with the docile obedience of a temple dog. The other grooms observed this transformation with a mixture of awe and superstition. Rumors spread through the estate that Mute Sam had lost his voice, but gained the spirit of horses. Some called him the horse demon. Some suggested, half-jokingly, that Sosam had been possessed by an animal god during his long convalescence. Whatever the explanation, the practical result was the same. The management of Yeoro was quietly transferred to Mute Sam, and no one in the family objected, because no one else wanted the assignment. Dongbong-soo did not object either. He had not objected because Yeoro, aside from being a magnificent animal, is now his passport. When he walks Yeoro through the streets of Bongyang, people step aside. They step aside because they know whose horse Yeoro is. They step aside because a servant walking Danri Cheonu's personal mount cannot be casually harassed, no matter how low that servant's rank may be. Even the drunks in the marketplace, who once threw stones at Sosam for entertainment, now watch Mute Sam pass in silence. The children in the marketplace have coined a phrase for this. They call it borrowing the horse's authority. They mean it as an insult. They mean that Mute Sam is only tolerated because of the animal beside him, and that without Yeoro, he would be nothing. They are correct about the tolerance. They are wrong about the nothing, because Mute Sam, invisible under the shadow of Yeoro's authority, walks through Bongyang every morning and every evening, surveying the population the way a butcher surveys livestock. He identifies patterns. He identifies vulnerabilities. He identifies which houses have locks that can be picked, which streets have no witnesses after sundown, which men leave the wine houses too drunk to defend themselves. He also identifies with growing frustration that the return on each new kill has begun to diminish. The gauge, once fed by ordinary citizens, has slowed. He needs stronger prey. He needs the middle rung. And on a particular afternoon, as he leads Yeoro past a shadowed alley on the eastern edge of the marketplace, the middle rung reveals itself. "Hey, Horse Dung Sam, why are you just passing by?" The voice comes from inside the alley. It is a rasp of a voice, the kind that comes from a throat that has been marinated in cheap liquor for years. Dongbong-soo turns his head, allowing his features to settle into the vacant confusion of Mute Sam. Inside the alley, 6 or 7 men are crouched against the walls. They are dressed in the layered rags of the professional homeless, and their eyes carry the specific flicker of men who have not eaten in several days. The largest of them, a broad-shouldered figure with an unkempt beard and a jaw that suggests both violence and stupidity, is watching Dongbong-soo with the focused interest of a wolf sizing up a lamb. His name is Do Pal-do. He is the leader of the marketplace's minor criminal underclass. He runs approximately 20 men, all of whom extort small merchants for protection money and small purses. He is not a martial artist. He is not connected to any of the black gangs. He is, in the food chain of Bongyang, roughly 1 rung above beggars and 1 rung below the true criminal organizations that operate in the deeper shadows. He is also, Dongbong-soo recognizes with the calm interest of a specialist encountering a new specimen, exactly the kind of prey he has been searching for. Do Pal-do and his men have been avoiding public alleys recently because the constables have doubled their patrols in response to the suicide epidemic. That they are visible today, in daylight, is a sign of hunger. When wolves come down from the mountains during a drought, they take risks they would never otherwise take. Du Paldu has calculated that the risk of extorting a mute servant is lower than the risk of continued hunger. He has calculated incorrectly. Dongbong Su lets his face slacken. He allows himself to be led into the deeper end of the alley, Yeoro trailing behind him. Du Paldu and his men crowd around him, cackling among themselves at the ease of this particular hunt. They are not planning to kill him. Killing a servant of the Danri family would attract attention. They are planning to beat him, take whatever coin he has, and leave him to explain the missing hours to his employer. The first slap lands. Dongbong Su falls to the ground. He does not resist. He does not cry out. He curls into the position of a beaten animal, and he lets the kicks land where they are aimed. His face turns toward the dirt. His arms come up to protect his head. His eyes, hidden beneath the shadow of his elbow, are calm and empty. He is calculating. He is calculating whether to kill them. The variables are precise. The gain from killing 7 marketplace thugs would be modest. The gauge would move slightly, but not enormously. The risk of killing them, on the other hand, is manageable, but not zero. A group of 7 bodies in an alley cannot be staged as suicide. He would have to store them all in the inventory and dispose of them elsewhere, and while he is fully capable of this, it would consume a significant portion of the day. The math, briefly, does not favor killing. Dongbong Su decides to endure. He absorbs the beating with the stillness of a well-trained monk. The kicks continue for perhaps 2 minutes. His ribs, which had only just fully healed from the beating that killed the original Sosam, protest each impact. Blood begins to trickle from a reopened split in his lip. And then, from the mouth of the alley, a new voice. "What are you all doing right now?" The kicks stop instantly. Dongbong Su, still curled on the ground, lifts his head just enough to see the newcomer through the gap between his own arm and the dirt. A tall man in black clothing has entered the alley. He is thick-shouldered and short-necked, with the compact musculature of a fighter. He is not a martial artist of the highest tier. He is not one of the impossible warriors who split stone in the Danri family courtyard. But he is not a marketplace thug either. He is something between. He is exactly the class of prey Dongbong Su has been looking for. Du Paldu recognizes him and turns pale. "Elder brother Zhang Ho," he stammers. "Zhang Ho." Dongbong Su files the name. "I asked what you are doing right now," Zhang Ho repeats, in the tone of a man who is not particularly concerned about the answer. Du Paldu fumbles for an explanation. He begins to say something about making an example of the servant. Zhang Ho does not appear to be listening. His eyes have already moved past Du Paldu to the animal standing at the mouth of the alley, and the moment his gaze falls on Yeoro, something shifts behind his face. Greed. Dongbong Su, watching from the ground, sees the shift with the clarity of a man who has read this exact expression thousands of times over the course of his previous career. The specific tilt of the eyes, the small tightening at the corner of the mouth, the way the breath catches, briefly, before resuming. Zhang Ho did not stumble into this alley by accident. Zhang Ho came here for Yoro. Dongbong Su understands in the same instant that Zhang Ho intends to kill him. He understands that Zhang Ho intends to kill Du Paldu and his men as well, to leave no witnesses, and to walk out of this alley leading a stolen imperial horse toward whichever black gang boss has commissioned the theft. He understands that Zhang Ho has planned this, that Zhang Ho is comfortable with the plan, and that Zhang Ho believes the plan will succeed. Zhang Ho has misjudged the target. Zhang Ho does not know that the target has been waiting for him. Zhang Ho approaches Du Paldu and calmly breaks his arm. The joint bends the wrong way with a wet crunch. Du Paldu shrieks. His body collapses to the ground beside Dongbong Su, and his surviving lieutenants scramble backward against the far wall of the alley in silent horror. Zhang Ho steps over the ruined limb and approaches Dongbong Su with the unhurried gait of a man who has already scheduled the next several minutes of his afternoon. He looks down at Mute Sam. "That is a fine horse," Zhang Ho says, in the conversational tone of a merchant appraising goods. "What breed is it?" Dongbong Su does not answer. He continues to play the mute. "I asked what breed this horse is." The tone deepens. A subtle vibration of internal energy enters the voice, projecting outward in the way martial artists project pressure when they want to intimidate. Dongbong Su feels the pressure. It is real. It is measurable. It confirms, for him, that Jang Ho is genuinely something more than a common street thug. The pressure also confirms, for Dong Bong-soo, something else. Jang Ho is not strong enough to matter. The pressure is real, but it is calibrated for terrifying stable boys and mid-tier merchants. Against a mind that has never been particularly susceptible to intimidation to begin with, it registers as an interesting data point rather than a threat. Dong Bong-soo has now witnessed the training of the Danri family warriors in the courtyard, and he has an intuitive sense of the gulf between those men and this one. Jang Ho is closer to Sosam's original weakness than to those warriors' impossibility. He is prey. He is exactly the prey Dong Bong-soo has been searching for. The decision assembles itself in Dong Bong-soo's mind with the elegance of a piece of geometry completing itself. He straightens slightly. He grips Yeoro's reins in one hand. He rises to a half-crouch, keeping his head bowed, keeping his features slack. He speaks. For the first time since he woke up in this world, he speaks. Then kill me. Why bother asking 3 times? The voice that leaves his throat is flat. Perfectly flat. It has no rise. It has no fall. It has none of the small emotional inflections that a normal voice cannot help but carry. It is the voice of a man who has been quiet for many months, and who has chosen this precise moment to end the silence. Jang Ho blinks. His face rearranges itself into confusion. He had believed the target was mute. He had planned around that belief. The sudden discovery that Sosam can speak, and that Sosam can speak with the calm indifference of a man volunteering for his own execution, has upset the schedule Jang Ho had carefully mapped for the next several minutes. The confusion lasts less than half a second. Half a second is all Dong Bong-soo requires. His head snaps up. His hand rises to his mouth. Something appears between his teeth. A dagger. It is a dagger he stole from the armory of the Danri family 6 weeks ago. It has been resting inside his inventory ever since, waiting for a moment exactly like this one. The retrieval requires no gesture from him, only intent. It appears in his mouth, gripped between his upper and lower teeth, the blade pointing outward. He lunges. The distance between his mouth and Jang Ho's throat is less than an arm's length. Jang Ho, still processing the confusion of a speaking mute, does not react in time. The dagger enters the left side of his neck. The dagger enters the right side of his neck. The tip of the blade emerges into the daylight, gleaming with the arterial red of a man whose day has just ended. How? Jang Ho whispers. Blood bubbles at the corners of his mouth. Dong Bong-soo grips the back of Jang Ho's neck and gives it a small, precise twist. The vertebra separates. Jang Ho collapses into the dirt. Dong Bong-soo rises to his full height. He looks down at the body with the calm, evaluative expression of a man who has just completed a routine transaction. I do not know either, he says softly. To the dead. It just worked out this way. And then, all around him, the alley fills with light. The light is white. It is not warm. It is not gentle. It is the pale, clinical light of a system registering completion, and it pours out of Dong Bong-soo's body in a soundless wave. It fills the alley. It reaches every corner. It illuminates the terrified faces of Do Paldu's surviving lieutenants, who are now huddled against the far wall, like cattle who have finally understood that the butcher has entered the pen. Dong Bong-soo recognizes the light instantly. He has seen it before, in a virtual reality game, in what feels like a lifetime that belonged to someone else. It is the light of a level increase. He remains still for the several seconds that the light takes to complete its bloom. He examines the sensation. He notes the way his old wounds, the ribs still tender from the beating Do Paldu's men delivered a few minutes ago, seem to knit themselves closed. He notes the way his muscles feel, without warning, heavier and lighter at the same time, denser but more responsive. He notes the way his vision sharpens, as if a small lens has been recalibrated inside his eye. Level 2. He is now level 2. The light fades. The alley returns to its normal color. The lieutenants against the far wall have not moved. They are shaking. One of them is crying without making a sound. Another has soiled himself. Dong Bong-soo turns his head toward them. He opens his mouth slightly. His teeth show. The lieutenants scream. They rush him, not because they believe they can win, but because the mind, when it has finally understood that death is inevitable, sometimes selects the option of forward motion over the option of stillness. It is a decision made below the level of language, in the small mammal brain that has survived 100,000 generations by teaching the body to lunge rather than to freeze. The decision is the wrong one. Dong Bong-soo moves. His right hand rises to chest height. His fingers close on a hilt that was not there a moment before. The inventory delivers a short sword into his grip, and the sword emerges already in motion. He swings it in a horizontal arc. The blade catches the throat of the first lieutenant. The cut is not clean because he has not held a sword in several months, and the muscles of this body are not yet trained for edged weapons. The blade lodges partway through the neck. He does not attempt to recover it. He discards it. A dagger appears in his hand, gripped with the point downward. He leaps into the group. The next several seconds are not a fight. They are not a duel. They are not any of the choreographed combat sequences that populate the epics of the martial world. They are a butcher's routine. Dong Bong-soo was, in his previous life, trained in every meaningful form of hand-to-hand violence that modern Korea offered. He knew the striking arts. He knew the grappling arts. He knew the weapon arts. He knew, most importantly, the discipline that separates the survivor from the fatality, which is the willingness to injure whichever part of the opponent is nearest. He does not fight fair. He does not know what fair means. He drives the dagger into an eye. He removes it and drives it into a throat. He kicks a knee sideways and severs the femoral artery of the man attached to it. He grabs a wrist and breaks it and takes the fallen dagger from the ruined hand and uses it to finish the wrist's owner. His movements do not have the fluid grace of a martial artist. They have the ugly, honest efficiency of a mechanic disassembling a machine. By the time the last lieutenant falls, 12 seconds have passed. The alley is silent again. Only one man remains alive. He is the smallest of Do Paldu's crew. He is on his knees. He has thrown his weapons aside. His hands are raised. He is not speaking because he knows that speaking will not help. Dong Bong-soo places the tip of the dagger against his throat. "What did that man do?" he asks, gesturing with his other hand at the body of Jong-ho. The lieutenant answers immediately. He answers because he still holds, in some small compartment of his terrified mind, the belief that answering might delay the inevitable. "He is with the Black Snake Society," the lieutenant whispers. "One of the black gangs. They control the back alleys of Bongyang." Black gangs? There are 3. Black Snake, Iron Cudgel, and Red Lantern. They are stronger than the marketplace thugs. They practice basic martial arts. 3-talent sword. Basic internal breathing. They pay taxes to no one and receive tribute from everyone below them. How many members? Black Snake has about 40, Iron Cudgel has 50, Red Lantern has 30. Dong Bong-soo considers this information. 120 men. 120 men who are stronger than ordinary citizens, but weaker than the warriors of the Danri family. 120 men who practice enough martial arts to yield meaningful experience points on death, but not enough to threaten a hunter who has now confirmed the reliability of his own methods. 120 middle-rung meals. He asks the lieutenant several more questions. He extracts locations. He extracts names of leaders. He extracts the schedules of the collections that the black gangs perform. He extracts, without appearing to press, everything the man knows. When the last question has been answered, he cuts the lieutenant's throat. The gauge in the corner of his vision moves. Not by much. The lieutenant was weak. But it moves. Dong Bong-soo exhales, satisfied. He turns to the work of cleaning the alley. He stores each body in the inventory. He removes his outer clothing, uses it to wipe the blood from the dirt, and stores the soiled clothing as well. He retrieves a fresh set of servant's clothes from the inventory and dresses himself in them. He walks Yeoro out of the alley by the same route he entered, and to any observer on the marketplace's main street, nothing has happened. Later, on the slopes of Bongyang Mountain, he digs a shallow but adequate grave. He deposits the bodies. He covers them with earth and stones and a thin layer of leaves. Yeoro watches him work with the patient indifference of an animal that has learned to trust its master. And Dong Bong-soo, when the last stone has been placed, pauses to stroke the horse's nose with a hand that is finally, briefly, at rest. Above his eyes, a hologram flickers. The text is corrupted. Portions of it are torn, fragmented, unreadable. A critical error has occurred in the Murim online system. though there should be no hindrance to proceeding with the game. Dongbong-su reads the message twice. He smiles. It is a small smile. It is a private smile. It is the same smile he wore on the night he ordered the Murim online capsule, the night he first heard about the new hunting ground. It keeps getting more interesting, he says quietly. He turns Yeworo back toward the estate. He walks home. At the same hour, on the opposite side of Bongyang, Gi Dae-hyo has arrived at the Bongyang Inn. The owner meets him at the door and leads him upstairs with the small, terrified courtesy of a man who has never before had a member of the Black Five group inspect his premises. Ji Man-ji follows behind them, silent, observing his father's face for the small signals that will tell him what conclusions the case is producing. They enter the second-floor room where Ma-chil and Choseon died. Ji Dae-hyo stands in the doorway for a long moment before crossing the threshold. His eyes move across the space with the systematic precision of a man who has walked 1,000 crime scenes. The ceiling, the corners, the floor, the bed, the beam from which the two bodies were found hanging. Each surface is inspected. Each is weighed for what it might reveal. There is no window. The absence of a window is the first thing he notices, because a competent investigator always begins with the possible avenues of entry. He walks the perimeter. The wall to the north is solid clay finished with plaster. The wall to the east is the outer wall of the inn, and it is thick, and it opens on nothing but the street below. The floor is finished with wood and clay. The ceiling is the same. If an intruder had entered through any of these surfaces, the surface itself would show damage. None of them do. The only remaining possibilities are the door and the wall shared with the adjacent room. The door is impossible. The inn's corridor is visible from below, and the servants and the other guests would have seen any intruder passing. The owner confirms, when asked, that no unusual figures were observed on the corridor that evening. Ji Dae-hyo turns to the shared wall. A cloth curtain, embroidered with tiger stripes, hangs across it. He waves the cloth aside. Behind the cloth is a wall of vertical wooden pillars, arranged side by side in the traditional pattern of Bongyang construction. Each pillar is fitted into grooves in the ceiling beam above and the floor beam below. Ji Dae-hyo examines them one by one. The pillars are undamaged. The grooves are undisturbed. There is no evidence that any pillar has been removed or replaced. He turns to the owner. Is there any way to remove one of these pillars without dismantling the wall? No, my lord. The construction does not permit it. To take even one pillar out, the entire beam above would need to be lifted. Ji Dae-hyo already knew this. He asked because habit required confirmation. He strokes his beard. He considers. If this room was not a suicide, then the killer entered through this wall. If the killer entered through this wall, then the killer possessed a technique that no known school of martial arts has ever taught. Perhaps a bone-shrinking art of a level he has never encountered. Perhaps the ability to flow one's body like water through the gaps between the wooden columns. He has never seen such a thing. He has heard rumors of masters who could do such things, but rumors, in the martial world, are usually rumors. He turns to his son. Who was in the adjacent room that night? Ji Man-ji, who has prepared for this question, provides the answer immediately. A servant of our family named Sosum. Sosum? A groom father. The one they call Horse Dung Sam, or Mute Sam. He was reportedly at the inn that evening in the company of a courtesan. Ji Dae-hyo's brow furrows. He has heard of the servant, in the vague way that a nobleman hears of the meanest members of his household. He knows the name is associated with the stable. He knows the servant is considered a fool. He knows that a beating some months ago rendered the servant mute, and that the servant has been the object of casual pity ever since. He does not know the servant. Nobody of Gi Dae-hyo's rank ever really knows the servants. Bring the courtesan, he says. The owner scurries away and returns within minutes with a young woman who has clearly been interrupted in the middle of entertaining another client. She is straightening her outer garment as she enters, and her cheeks are flushed with the mild irritation of a professional whose schedule has been disrupted. Ji Dae-hyo begins his questions. You were with the man named Sosam on the night the deaths occurred? Yes, my lord. What did you do that evening? The courtesan laughs briefly. She catches the owner's warning glance and rearranges her mouth into a more respectful expression. We slept together, my lord. That is what the customers come here for. Did you observe anything unusual? Any figure passing through the wall between the rooms? Any sound of a struggle? The courtesan considers. No, my lord. I heard the usual sounds from the next room, a man and a woman. Then, at some point, the sounds stopped. But I did not pay attention. I was occupied with my own client. Anything else? Any small detail that seemed out of place? The courtesan tilts her head. There was one thing. Sosam asked for food to be brought before he began. Most customers request food afterward, or not at all. He said he was hungry. Ji-dae-ho does not react outwardly, but a small note is filed inside his mind. The request for food is not, by itself, incriminating. It is unusual, but only mildly. Perhaps the servant was nervous. Perhaps the servant, coming from a background of severe deprivation, wanted to eat before the meal could be taken away from him. Perhaps. Ji-dae-ho continues questioning. He asks about the sequence of events. He asks about the durations. He asks about the small ambient details that the courtesan may not have consciously registered. She answers each question patiently, but the answers yield nothing further of interest. He is preparing to release her when she speaks one more time. There is one other thing, my lord. It has nothing to do with the case, but I thought I should mention it. Yes? The courtesan smiles. A small and unprofessional smile. That man Sosam, his stamina was truly exceptional. I have never encountered such skill in my entire career. If there is another man like him somewhere in Bongyang, I am prepared to give myself to him even if he is a mute and a fool. The owner clears his throat sharply. Ji-dae-ho does not respond. He is looking at the wall of vertical pillars. He is thinking. A mute servant. A groom. A fool the entire estate has been ignoring for years. A man who, on the night of the first inexplicable death in a chain of 230 inexplicable deaths, happened to be in the room adjacent to the crime scene. A man whose sexual technique, according to a professional witness, is inconsistent with the profile of a lifelong illiterate stable boy. The details do not by themselves form a case. They form a hypothesis. Ji-dae-ho, who has learned over decades to trust his instincts, feels the hypothesis begin to assemble itself in the lower rooms of his mind. He does not force it. He does not yet examine it. He simply notes that it has begun to form. Then, because he is a professional, he sets it aside. A mute groom is not a serial killer. A mute groom cannot pass through a solid wall. A mute groom cannot orchestrate 230 deaths across a city while performing the duties of a stable hand. The hypothesis is absurd on its face. The details are coincidences. He dismisses it. He thanks the courtesan. He gestures to his son. Let us go to the next site. Yes, father. They leave the room. They descend the stairs. They step out into the street. Ji-dae-ho pauses at the door of the inn and glances back, briefly, at the second floor. Something in his expression is not quite settled. The owner watches them deploy their movement techniques and vanish down the road. The courtesan returns upstairs. Bongyang Inn resumes its usual business. At the exact hour Ji-dae-ho is descending the stairs of the Bongyang Inn, Dongbong-soo is leading Yeoro through the eastern gate of the Donri family estate. He has changed his clothes, he has cleaned his hands, he has arranged his face into the vacant slackness of mute Sam, and he is walking with the shuffling, downcast gait that everyone in the estate has come to associate with the family fool. Yeoro walks beside him, calm and imperial, and the guards at the gate wave them both through without inspection. He returns to the stable. He grooms Yeoro. He feeds him. He performs his evening duties with the same competent invisibility he has maintained for months. When the last horse is settled and the last lamp is dimmed, he lies down on his straw bed and stares up at the wooden ceiling of the stall. Above his eyes, the corrupted status window flickers into view. Level 2. He looks at the number for a long moment. He allows himself, in the privacy of the stable, a very small smile. He has now confirmed several things. He has confirmed that human life produces experience. He has confirmed that stronger humans produce more experience. He has confirmed that leveling up heals injury, sharpens the senses, and strengthens the body. He has confirmed that the light of the level increase is visible to any observer within a certain radius, which means future levels must be earned in places where no witnesses remain alive. He has also confirmed that the system, whatever it is broken. The corrupted messages, the error notifications, the fragmentary windows that populate his interface, All indicate a system that was never designed to be here. He is not supposed to have this. Somewhere, in some administrative office of some cosmic bureaucracy, a filing error occurred. He is the beneficiary of that error. He does not care why. He cares only that the error persists. He closes his eyes. Elsewhere in Bongyang, Ji Dae-hyo is walking toward the next crime scene, still turning over the small courtesan's testimony in the back of his mind. He is not yet ready to name the hypothesis. He is not yet ready to entertain it seriously. But it has been planted, and it will grow slowly, in the way that all true suspicions grow. Elsewhere in the martial world, the Black Snake Society is unaware that one of its enforcers has failed to report in. The head of the society, a man who has been coveting Yaoro for years, will assume by morning that Jong-ho has absconded with the horse and betrayed the organization. He will send men to hunt Jong-ho. The men will not find him. They will not find him because Jong-ho is currently under 3 feet of dirt on the slopes of Bongyang Mountain, and Jong-ho is only the first of many members of the Black Snake Society who will disappear over the coming weeks without leaving any trace. Elsewhere in the underworld, Beltaruk is completing another routine soul collection, blissfully unaware that his cosmic error is still walking around inside a stolen body. And in the stable of the Danri family, the demon that was conceived in a shabby corner between 2 horse stalls is now level 2. He is not yet a threat to the great masters of the Central Plains. He is not yet a name that will be spoken in the halls of the Namgung family or the beggar sect. He is not yet a legend. He is a mute stable boy who has just discovered his path. The city of Bongyang has met its greatest hunter. The city of Bongyang does not know it yet. And the greatest investigator in Bongyang, the man tasked with uncovering the truth of the suicide epidemic, has just walked out of the room next to the very first murder, past the very witness who could have named the killer, past the very smile that could have given him away, and out into the streets of a city he no longer fully understands. He has walked past the shadow. The shadow has watched him go. The shadow will not be so easily seen again.